What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another edition of Sin's Chat Corner, or in this particular case, I should say Sin's Canadian Connections. For some strange reason, I've been having some problems switching from one show to another show, so I've been doing all my shows off of my main base, which is Sin's Chat Corner. I'm hopeful that over the next couple of days I can revert everybody's stuff to where it needs to be, meaning the Sun Spotlight, the Biker Group /SOA, all those shows will go to that one. Anybody from the Canadian side of things will automatically get reverted over to the Canadian Connections show. And then, of course, everybody else falls under my beautiful, wonderful umbrella of Sin's Chat Corner. So I'm excited. Very excited. I don't want to forget to mention this coming Thursday, and I'm working on a time for that. We're going to be interviewing Sister Grace from the House of Mercy. If any of you live in Rochester, New York, or in the New York surrounding areas, you know about the homeless situation. Sanctuary Village is trying to give housing to the homeless because of the bitter cold temperatures. And they're getting a lot of opposition, or should I say non-assistance, from the city of Rochester. And so we're trying to raise a whole bunch of big money for the homeless to have a place to be able to stay. Hence, I want to get Sister Grace from the House of Mercy on the line to be able to talk to her about what their needs are, what they do, what they provide to the homeless. And with any luck at all, they'll get an opportunity to be able to find these people some homes, especially in the frigid temperatures. So I'd appreciate your support and listening, and I'll have some surprises for you, too. Speaking of which, today's guest, I'm sure, is going to be just a true delight. I've been waiting a long time to get Michael Richards on the line with me. As I mentioned, he's a three-way triangle of talent: musician, songwriter, and a visual artist. He is another one of my fine Canadians, which I get so excited when I get to interview these guys. So without further ado, let's get Michael on the line and start chit-chatting with him. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Hi. You're real and live. You're not just a Facebook phenom.
Yes. Yeah, it's been a long time. I've been waiting to speak to you.
Yes, I know. In fact, I was just mentioning that. I feel terrible oftentimes when people have to have such a hiatus and waiting. And I was off of the radio for about 6 or 8 months or so. And right. I just had my personal life to get in order. And it's been very... It's very time-consuming. It's very frustrating. There's so many people that I want to get on this show, and there's only one of me. So it's hard to do justice to everybody. You have to have time, and, well, you know the drill, obviously. It's tough. So now I can put a voice to the face, too.
That's right.
Meaning your voice to the face, because I've looked at your different pictures, and I've looked at your page, and I've looked at all sorts of versions of you, and I'm like, oh my God, so you sound exactly as I would have pictured, this deep voice, hopefully not too intimidating sort of guy. So try to be nice to me today. I'm having a rough time, so please try to be kind. Oh, definitely. So how are you? How are things in Canada? What's the weather like over there right now?
Well, I'm fine. It's bitterly cold. There's a lot of snow, and I'm kind of getting over the flu, and it's only the last day or so that I've been feeling actually recovered. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Here I am dragging you on the radio when you're feeling like garbage. My gosh, I'm sorry. I know what that's like.
No, I'm doing better now.
Pneumonia. Wonderful.
I'm glad.
Well, glad. And this is going to be exciting. I absolutely love doing the Canadians. You know, I just had Ed Roman on the show the other day, and I actually gave him a tip-off today. I said, you should listen to this guy's interview, meaning you, Michael. And you guys are very similar in lots of ways. You're both musicians, you're both songwriters, you're both in Canada. And he has the same sense of humor and that quirky sort of, you know, because when I look on your page, oftentimes I say to myself, I love this guy because he's on Planet Nine sometimes, and I mean that in the kindest way. I like people that are off the base, off the norm, people that strive to be different. And Ed is just, special Ed, as I call him, or so he calls himself. He's wonderful. He's fabulous. And so I love Canadians. You all seem to have a few different things in common. For instance, you're multi-talented, because I mentioned to our listening audience that you're a songwriter, you're a musician, and, of course, you're a visual artist. So I kind of wanted to start off with that sort of thing. Visual artist side of things. Tell the listening audience a little bit about how your focus got into the visual arts and what specifically you're talented in the areas of.
Well, I think the visual arts are actually my first love. I was in art school at the University of Michigan and
right.
actually that's where I met some of the musicians that later affected my path in life. But
sure.
I'm kind of a surrealist, and I always had a knack for drawing, and but it took a long time for me to develop the maturity to complete larger works, and once I did that, I actually mostly since I retired from my job, I started to do a lot of painting and things like that,
sure.
more than I had done in the past.
I gotcha. Now, I want to be clear about something like this because, one of the things that I'm trying to get my son into, he's 10 years old now, and he's starting to get a little more of an interest, per se, in doodling and sketching, and I got him all the sketch pads and all that wonderful stuff, and I got excited thinking, he's going to be a Picasso. So maybe just kind of explain to me a little bit, how challenging is something like that to try to maintain? If you have a love or a passion for something, but yet you're pursuing, obviously, of course, you're writing songs and you're recording songs and you're being a musician, how do you not lose that creative side of things? How is there a maintained balance between the things you love?
Well, I think you just kind of have to go whichever way the wind blows. If you have opportunities, you take them and you try to learn good work habits and to develop your skills the best you can, and follow what you love,
No, definitely, of course. Now, is this something that you've done for just personal reward itself, or is this something where you've taken it and it's in different places, people can go look at what you have displayed and done?
Well, I'm trying to think. I have, as far as the artwork goes, I have published a few posted gallery of a lot of my drawings and paintings, but it seems to me that I don't have a lot of patience for doing the kind of promotion and business stuff that's necessary to make a career of it, so I just try to make the artwork and do what I love doing and let the rest of it take care of itself. And that really hasn't probably been a very good way of approaching things, but it's all I seem to be able to do.
Oh, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, another thing came to mind before I came on the air because I thought to myself, since Canadian Connections, which is my third show, this is the newest one, has not been a launched on air nearly as long as the other two shows that I have. And one of the things that I was missing was I've been trying to come up with an actual logo because I have show logos for both the other two shows. So because you're Canadian, maybe you can help me out a little bit. To you, what would represent Canada in the best possible light? Because I want to do a logo that's reflecting maybe just an inch or two of myself, but mainly displays Canada. So there may be three components you could give me that would be best suited for something like that.
Well, of course, the symbol of Canada is the maple leaf, and
right.
There are a lot of ways to play with that idea since it's a shape that everybody recognizes, And then there's the beaver, of course, which if you wanted a more humorous approach to it, there are a lot of opportunities there. And,
yes.
And also it's the north, so snow and snowflakes and various images like that I would assume might be useful.
Is there a beautiful part of, and I know Canada is beautiful, I've sent pictures of all different areas, of course, you're in the Montreal area, is that correct, or relatively close to that?
Right.
Okay, and then of course we have, like Quebec, you've got Toronto, you've got all different kinds of areas. Is there one that just stands out to you that's most beautiful, let's say, that just really captures the beauty of your country?
Well, I was born within sight of Canada in Detroit near the Ambassador Bridge, and so all I knew was Ontario, which I had visited many times and liked, but it was a lot like Michigan where I grew up. And then I came to know Quebec, and summer before last, my girlfriend Nicole and I decided to take a little tour, and I wanted to see the rest of Canada. So we drove out to Alberta and passed through Medicine Hat and various towns along the way, like I don't know. Anyway, we went to Calgary for the Stampede, and we went up all the way to Jasper through the Rocky Mountains, and we drove back over the northern shore of Lake Superior and saw Sudbury, which is a big meteoric crater that where a town now exists, and there's a lot of mining there, but it was in prehistory, it was a huge impact area. But anyway, there's beauty everywhere. It's a huge, beautiful country, and there's a lot of it I still haven't seen. I have to go to the East Coast and see the Maritimes, which I understand are very beautiful as well.
Nice, very nice. Goodness gracious. This just encourages my need and desire to come to Canada, because I have yet to actually visit for the first time. It's probably because I need a passport to get there, and of course I don't have one as of yet, but I'm working on it, so I'm excited. So thank you. I've been kind of dawdling on that logo, and I'm like, you're gonna have a show, you gotta have a logo. So I'm like, excuse me. So hopefully that'll be something in the near future. In doing a little research, I came to come across, and again, the same thing happened with Ed Roman, so this must be a Canada thing. Now, I'm guessing that you already know this, but there happens to be both a hockey player and a radio interviewer that actually shares the same name as yourself and are also from Canada. Did you know that?
Yes, I'm very well aware of it.
Oh,
yeah.
I knew
it. In fact,
See,
one of the problems I have
in
promoting myself is that I'm not very searchable with my name is so common, that I put out a CD where I called myself MJ Richards on the first one and Michael J. Richards on the second one, and I think on the third one I'm going to be James Richards. So I don't know. I probably should find a pseudonym,
Oh, something that just catches you. Because I saw the MJ Songs thing, and I thought, well, that was kind of different, you know what I mean? Because not everybody's that. But then when I type in MJ Songs, it comes up Michael Jackson, which is even funnier, because I'm like, okay, MJ Songs, here's Michael Jackson, weird correlation, so it's kind of strange. So I'm like,
I know,
okay,
it seems like
right. I can't really find you. I can find you, but I can't find you. It's kind of like it's difficult, as far as that goes. But that's okay. We found you. You're here, and that's all that matters. Now, before you became the stunning success that you are right now, I know that formerly you had come from working at the Fine Arts Museum in San Francisco, which means obviously you spent some time in California. Now, did you gravitate to something like that because, of course, your love for the arts and, of course, you participating in it? I mean, how does a guy go from being there to being where you are right now?
Well, I was living in Ann Arbor where I went to art school, and some of my friends there formed this band called Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen, and they moved to San Francisco, and I wrote some songs for them that were published, and that was essentially the reason that I moved to San Francisco.
Oh, I've gotcha. Okay. And now, of course, obviously, how long were you at the museum, and what was your capacity there actually?
Well, I lived in San Francisco and California for 35 years or something like that. Yeah. And during that time I wrote songs. I worked as a silkscreen printer and designer, and eventually found my way into employment with the city and county of San Francisco in their fine arts museums, and I worked with them in a technical capacity. It was just a job, a good-paying job, so that ended up being a career for me for quite a number of years.
Wow, look at that. Then did you wake up one morning and say to yourself, okay, well, I'm just going to focus primarily more so on writing the songs and playing and performing, or was there some sort of turn of events that occurred where you became more focused on your music?
Well, I guess it had to. I was working at a record store, and I happened to introduce some of the members of the Commander Cody band, and I just, for fun, wrote a song that they liked, and that kind of inspired me to do more. And I had kind of had a knack for that sort of thing. I'd sort of written lyrics to other songs in the past, rewrote lyrics, satirical versions of lyrics and that. But anyway, I had a kind of a knack for it, and once I got started, I found I really enjoyed it, and so I followed through on it.
Ah, wonderful. Now, in the beginning, was it a little more difficult? Because I know sometimes musicians will say to me, when you're first out and starting and all that good stuff, there's that level of stage fright and concern about fan expectation, things along those lines. Was that ever anything that was really troublesome to you?
I always had confidence in my lyrics, but I had to learn a lot about music. So in the beginning, I was very limited in what I could do. I was playing. Just learning to play Carter family songs, very simple country folk type stuff, and so I wrote songs that used 3 chords, and then as I learned more, I wrote more sophisticated songs. I eventually went to school in California and studied music for a couple of years and learned my theory and all that. So now I can pretty much do what I want to do.
I gotcha, of course. And if I were to ask you today, are you most comfortable sharing the stage with someone, or do you find yourself having that comfort level now where you can say, you know what, it's okay for me to do acoustic solo and I'm fine with that?
I was playing solo for quite a while locally in this cafe, the Depanneur Cafe in Montreal, and I found that it's a lot of pressure, and especially because I'm trying to kind of I'm playing harmonica on a neck rack and using an electronic harmonizer, so that I could add some harmony to the songs and this and that. But I was kind of a one-man band. Now I'm working with my friend Jordan Steves. We're kind of a duet. We call ourselves the Rock Rollers, and I found that it's a lot more fun and takes a little bit of the pressure off when you have somebody there supporting you.
Oh, definitely, absolutely, without a doubt. And that lends itself to the next question, actually, because obviously I'm from the States, so I'm not from Canada. So one thing that I'm intrigued to know is how supportive Canadians are in terms of arts, music, things like that. Because I get varying opinions, to be honest with you. So in your neck of the woods, how does that fare for you?
Well, I don't. It's a little hard for me to say because even though I've been here for a while, I'm still kind of new in town, and by some people I'm perceived as an American rather than a Canadian. So I don't know, but support is where you find it, and I don't think I wouldn't say that it's a matter of being Canadian or American. It's just you have to go out and entertain people and find support wherever you happen to be.
Oh, of course, definitely. That's one of the other things that we were talking about, too, that I was thinking about, actually. Here in the United States, obviously, one of the main reasons that I started doing a show like this, meaning the Canadian side of things, is so that I could actually broadcast here in the United States. And then eventually what I would like to do in the near future is to hook up with a Canadian station of sorts, where this way then I can play the original interview here, have it replayed in Canada. So you're almost getting the dual exposure sort of things. Curious on your take on this one, because I've heard this very publicly from high-profile people, in fact, that have said that sometimes the media isn't real forthcoming. So I want to ask an independent artist as yourself, is it harder or more challenging because you're not the bigger name, so to speak, or does the media still embrace you and are able to give you the proper and ample exposure you need?
Well, I don't know. I've never been very good at that sort of thing myself. But, you kind of have to make your own breaks. But I would say that I've had a lot of friends and support from people that I met here in Montreal, and I really appreciate it. And I think probably if I worked harder at it, I could find more, But I tend to just want to work on the music,
Oh, of course, that makes sense. And of course, obviously, sometimes it's difficult to do press and all that good stuff, the more popular you get and all that good stuff. But I sure appreciate the fact that you actually just took the time to come and talk to me, because I'm always flattered to talk to someone who has a talent that I have no ability in. I can't play, I can't sing, I can write, but I'm like, I can't do any of this. So kudos to you, of course. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit and kind of switch gears on a personal side of things, because obviously not all of you are friends of Michael Richards. For instance, I happen to be your friend on Facebook, so I follow and I watch certain things and all that good stuff. And one of the things that I'm going to take as a personal observation, and you can maybe either concur this or say I'm way off base, you seem to be very good at parodying yourself and kind of making humor out of all sorts of different things, keeping things light, per se. Is that just part of your personality that extends to you personally? Does that go to your music?
Well, I have a broad range of interests, and sometimes I don't keep things as separated as I should. Maybe if I focus a bit more on one thing and then another, I might get further, but I just kind of go wherever my interest lies at the moment, So
No, I understand. I get it. In fact, you have a unique personality, in my opinion, and I think that can serve a person well, especially if it carries to your career, per se, if that's something that, extends out and becomes that. People are always looking for something new and original and out of the ordinary. Would you say that if I showed up at the cafe next week and I watched a gig of yours, would you say that it is unique and different, or it varies somehow from another performer? And if so, how?
I didn't quite understand the last part of your question.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Meaning, let's say, for instance, next week I happen to be in Canada, and I know that you have that reoccurring performance that you do at the cafe. Let's say I walked in there and I sat down and I listened to your presentation. I'm curious for you to be able to fill into the listening audience, because they may not have heard you before. What's unique or different do you feel about your style or your presentation or how you do your gig that varies from another performer?
Well, I think that I kind of fall into a zone that I don't hear many other people playing, which I'm kind of rhythm-oriented, and I play a little more aggressively than a lot of folk players play, and I don't know. I would have a hard time defining what makes me special, except I know that I seem to have a unique sound. That's all I can say. And people at the cafe do seem to appreciate it, so I just do the best I can.
And very real and down to earth and very unique. Well, unique personality, unique way of playing, and that's a great combination, actually. So definitely sounds good to me. All right, let's talk a little bit about Tornado Alley, because I know that that's one of the CDs that you have done, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Tornado Alley was a song I wrote a good many years ago, and all of my songs are layered and nuanced, so that they are very often there's a surface meaning to the song, but then there's a lot of other meanings that are underneath it, So Tornado Alley, it's about tornadoes and the destructive power of tornadoes and so forth and so on, but it's also about destiny and why people continue to live where they live and do what they do in spite of the fact that they are constantly facing destruction and renewal.
Sure, of course. It makes absolutely perfect sense. One of the things that I like to hear in what you just said, and I guess it begs to ask this question, do you find yourself on an ongoing basis when you're composing music, finding it important for yourself to have some kind of a message or a meaning to each of the songs you compose?
Yes, if not two or three.
Yeah. Really? Okay.
Yeah, I really write songs with the intent that there's a meaning that you hear the first time you hear it, and if you come back and listen again and again, hopefully you'll hear different things that I'm talking about, not merely what you see on the surface.
Oh my goodness gracious! So and I find that interesting too, because it must be challenging to some extent to try to find multiple messages that you can, exemplify to the things that you do. I find that fascinating, actually, because I know it can be challenging at times. Now, a question I have for you, because, of course, obviously I know that you're in a relationship, so, yes, women are probably brokenhearted all over the world because now they know that Michael Rich is not available out there, like, oh, my God, he's a musician and so talented, and he's not single.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you're human, so, of course, I know that most women, at least, well, or maybe it's just me, would love it if they were dating a musician full-time, because, of course, I'm sure you're going to tell me that means that you've written songs for her, that you serenade her, right?
Yes. A lot of my songs are inspired by Nicole, oftentimes too, it's not so much a specific thing, but it's just a number of things that kind of come together in a song that may or may not refer to anything actual concrete in my life, but more or less just sort of an amalgam of various influences.
I understand. I've got you. And then, of course, if you don't mind me asking, this is a long-term relationship. You've been together a while, I take it?
Yeah, she's why I'm in Canada.
Oh, how absolutely wonderful is that? That's great. And now, of course, is she in a parallel position in terms of she's a singer, songwriter? Does she do the same sort of occupation as yourself, or non-creative?
No, Nicole is a professional translator. And well, she's very supportive, but she's not a musician. She appreciates what I do, but.
Oh, very nice. Very, very nice, actually. And that's always good to hear, too, because a lot of times often I'll talk to somebody and then they're like, yes, they're purposely in the same occupation as me because then they understand and they get the regimen as far as that goes. Because sometimes living the life of a musician can be tough. I mean, people tell me all the time, they're out gigging 4 nights a week, and if they're not doing that, they're recording, that sort of good stuff. Do you keep a relatively simplistic schedule, or is it becoming more entangled, so to speak?
Well, no, I keep my performances limited. I'm just playing in this cafe. I'm not even really looking for other things right at the moment because it's mostly the writing and recording that I'm focused on. And also, I mean, I'd like to say, I mean, maybe a lot of women see musicians as desirable, but the musicians are very difficult actually to live with, and it takes a lot of patience and tolerance to put up with a musician.
Oh my goodness. Oh, and I imagine so, because I've noticed a lot of times, and this is just here in town too, every musician seems to have a very varied personality. Some have an ego, some don't have an ego, some are a little flaky, some are not. It's a different kind of world, I think. It takes a special person to understand a musician. Would you think that might be true, or am I a little off base? I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you're absolutely right because we're in our bubble a lot of the time, and not as good company as we might be plenty of the time because we've got things running around in our head, and practicing and performing and all this other stuff, So we're not always there when we should be.
No, I understand completely, 100%. And of course, obviously, it's just something you learn to deal with over time. I've just learned that. I'm like, when you approach a musician, it is what it is. They're doing their thing. You just have to learn to accept them for who they are. And they compose some absolutely beautiful, beautiful things, I have to say. So thank you. I should be thanking you. Even though you're all a little difficult, thank you so much for existing.
You're welcome. And you too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, you were, and I would swear you have to be my very first guest. It's actual dual citizen. You're a citizen of the United States, citizen of Canada. Is that correct? Is that possible?
Yes.
You can actually be a dual citizen? Really? How does that work?
Well, I had to file for immigrant status to move here, to live here.
Oh.
And I don't know, it just seemed like the natural thing for me. If I'm living here, I want to participate, I want to vote, I want to be a Canadian, So it took a lot of paperwork and a long time, but eventually I got my Canadian citizenship. And actually, it's only, I guess, in the past decade or so that Americans were allowed to hold dual citizenship, I think. So
right.
Fortunately for me, that worked out. I wouldn't want to give up my American citizenship either.
Yeah, that's tough. I know that's a quandary for other individuals I've talked to before, and that's why when I heard dual citizenship, I thought, is that even legal? I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. I just thought to myself, that seems really strange to me that you're able to coordinate both of them and to do both. But that's kind of neat because then it's almost like having the best of both worlds. And then, of course, if you do venture off, then you can end up going, to Canada and then being in the United States and doing both.
Right.
I'll get you. Perfectly. Well, wonderful. That's absolutely great. Tell me something. Give me one perk of being a Canadian citizen, because I'll probably never get that privilege in my lifetime.
Well, I get to have a vote. I get to, and I can pass freely back and forth across the border, and I can't be deported without due process and various other things.
Oh.
And I guess if I want to travel, I have a Canadian passport too. So in some places that serves me. People are more welcoming if you're a Canadian, So.
I imagine so, definitely. And like I said, of course, obviously, I say this time and time again, every time an interview comes up with a Canadian person, but it's true. You all seem to have this cute factor and this charm and this class factor about you. And even though you weren't originated from there, it just seems as though a Canadian in general, this is just what you're infamous for. Were you aware of that? But it's true. You're all the same.
Well, yeah, but it's a little deceptive because Canadians are very friendly and polite and so forth, but they're also, they have a really tough inner core too, so you can't mistake that for weakness. they're very strong-minded and opinionated people too in their own way, but they're they are nice. It seems to be like a Canadian trait,
I know, right? Everybody's just kind of hand and a hug shake, or a hug and a handshake, and everybody's just so nice to one another. I just kind of envy it, just so that you know, here in the United States, well, you've been here, obviously, and, well, I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm a little Midwesterner, and you've been to California, and they scare me, so I'm not so sure about that one. So it's interesting to see the culture diversity, but in a very cool way. I mean, I hold Canadians in a very high regard. Clearly, I have an entire show about this, so hopefully I'll get to see your fine country one day. That would be absolutely wonderful.
Well, so
okay,
there's a lot of different... Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No. Fine. Go ahead. Feel free.
Well, I was going to say, living in Quebec, I mean, you have a lot of exposure to the French Canadians, and they have their own culture too, and their own group traits and so forth and so on. Although they too have this quality of politeness and niceness, but
Sure.
they also have their own unique characteristics as well.
Of course, as we all do, clearly. I mean, I think we're all a little screwy in a good way, so to speak. That's the way I like to put it, actually.
Okay.
Well, to each his own. That's all I can say. You float your own boat, so to speak. I want to talk about a couple of different songs. So the first thing I want to start off with talking about is, tell us a little bit about how the formulation of the Rock Rollers came to occur.
Well, I was looking for some backup musicians. And one of the guys that answered my ad was Jordan Steves, and so he learned my stuff, and he's basically a heavy metal bass player, and he decided he wanted to kind of broaden his horizons a bit and learn some country and this and that. So he turned out to be actually a very responsible and showed up for practices on a regular basis and showed a real interest in what was going on, and so that was good. And then he bought. It's funny because he bought an acoustic bass guitar, which is like a regular guitar, except it's a little bit longer neck and 4 strings, but it's just like a guitar, rather an acoustic guitar, and because of that, it kind of led me into thinking that we should play something that was a little more like a country funk sort of thing rather than straight country, and more rhythm oriented and so forth. And so I was originally Michael J. with Jordan just backing me up, and so I decided to rename us and call us the Rock Rollers, and start emphasizing more of a rhythmic approach.
Gotcha. And of course, do you find the chemistry between the two of you works well, both on stage and off stage? Because I have heard sometimes that people can play together, but on a friend, and I hate to say it, but it's true, on a friendship level, it's kind of like, okay, professionally they do well, but then sometimes they don't mix as well off stage. Does that make sense?
Well, Jordan is a young guy, and we're 2 generations apart, pretty much. And I get along with him great. We practice all the time, and he's very smart, and I love just talking to him as well as playing with him. So there's none of that. We're really good friends.
That's absolutely wonderful. I like to hear that. And of course, as you had mentioned, I know that you have an ongoing gig, and that's every Monday, and that's at Depanneur. Am I saying this wrong? Depanneur?
No, Depanneur. The cafe, Depanneur Cafe. It's kind of an odd name because Depanneur is kind of a convenience store, so I don't know exactly what they call it.
And from what I can see here, I know that you've boasted that you've done hundreds of shows there. So I'm like, I know this again might sound like an odd question, but again, I'm not a musician, so of course I have to pick your brain on all this good stuff. Does it ever become like, oh, look, we're doing this again on Monday at the exact same place, and here we are, and all that good stuff? Or does it still stay fresh for you, even though you've been there repetitively?
Well, we never do the same set twice, which helps. So, I mean, we actually have, I've got I don't know, 100 and some songs that I rotate, and we don't even play the same song the same way twice, so it's always fresh.
Holy mackerel, he's impressing me by the second here, and that's not something easy. I mean, that's not easy for someone to be able to do, definitely, because a lot of times there's just not enough music or not enough songs. They don't have enough put together, so that's very commendable, my friend. Kudos to that. That's awesome.
We try to keep it loose, so beginnings and endings, we don't have often a definite beginning or a definite ending, and sometimes I'll add a verse or leave a verse out, and so forth. And Jordan's always quick to pick up on what's going on, so it always seems to work out, and it does keep it fresh.
Very cool, very cool. Now, of course, I always have to ask my standardized question when it comes to a musician, which is this. We all want to believe that every show that you do is perfect, on task, everything goes well, everybody loves you, and it's terrific. Has there ever been a moment or an evening where it's just been a disaster from start to finish?
I wouldn't say they're a real disaster, but there have been some that I didn't perform well, and I wasn't happy with it, and some where I felt I did very well, or we did very well. But I think that I wouldn't say there were any real disasters, but sometimes we get an audience that wants to just stare at their laptops and doesn't really care what's going on.
Yep.
Sometimes there's nobody there, but we play anyway, and we just, if we play our best or try to play our best, then that's about all we can do,
Of course, and that's all that we expect out of you as the audience too. And I don't know how that doesn't drive you crazy, and you just want to scream, "Hey, would you mind getting off of that contraption that you're attached to, like your phone or your computer?" Because it just seems like you know what I'm saying, right? It just drives me nuts. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm here. Did you notice I'm here? Because I guess you don't know I'm here. Even my own kids do it. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. That video game has taken me over, apparently, and it's just not as important. That drives me crazy. Oh, I could go for days on that one, let me tell you.
Well, that's another thing in which maybe we separate ourselves from some of the other groups, in that we're not background music. We're not there to just provide a pleasant ambiance. We're actually performing and trying to entertain people. So,
of course,
sometimes that works, and sometimes not so much.
Oh, of course, and it's a roll of the dice sometimes. I completely understand that. That's for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the songs you did for, as you mentioned, Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen, is that correct? Lost Planet Airmen, okay, which is, of course, Sunset on the Stage. I want to talk have you talk a little bit about the inspiration behind that song and how you ended up collaborating with them.
Well, I didn't really sort of end up collaborating. I almost just was there at when the band formed to begin with, and okay. As I introduced the lead singer to the band and various things like that, I was always kind of peripherally involved with them, and so the first song I wrote for them was called "Old Kentucky Hills of Tennessee," and I didn't think much of it. I gave it to the guy that I had introduced to them, Billy C. And so I was sitting at home listening to a concert. There was called a Free John Sinclair concert, and I got a poster of it on my wall right now I'm looking at. But John Lennon was there, and a bunch of other pretty big-name artists, and so I was listening to it, and Commander Cody was on the rotation. So when it came time to play, they played Old Kentucky Hills of Tennessee, and it just knocked me right off my chair. It was the best. I couldn't believe it. It sounded so great, and it was so amazing to hear my song transformed like that, And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And so I ended up writing maybe a half dozen songs for that band, and Sunset on the Stage is probably the best known. It's still kind of a classic, and especially in Austin, Texas, which is kind of the home of that kind of music.
Certainly, of course. And I unfortunately haven't gotten a chance to listen to it, but I plan on doing that, actually, and I would highly recommend that. In fact, I'm going to post a lot of this information up on my webpage, or I should say my Facebook page as well, too, so people get some idea of who you are. Because a lot of times I'll throw a name out there, and they're like, who's that guy? What does he do? And I'm like, Well, read everything that I have to say, and you'll find out all about him. I think it's absolutely exciting to expose new music to people, especially here. It's like, God, did you hear about this guy? Oh, no, who's he? Okay, well, then listen. Let me just kind of throw you out there and let everybody know that. I do. I think that social media nowadays is really, as much as I don't always like some of the components of it, it's a great means to get your message out there, whether it's a personal message, whether it's a professional message. It really is nowadays. It's the fastest way to get things to the masses, whether I like it or not.
I had a couple of my songs covered in Europe, too. You know, there was a Dutch band that did Old Kentucky Hills of Tennessee, and another band that did a song called Y.E. Blues. The Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen are actually pretty well known in certain circles.
Wow, I am really, truly impressed. This guy is becoming like a celebrity every 2 minutes I talk to him. This is like too exciting. I can't stand that. This is awesome.
But I'm really not any kind of a celebrity, but I like to think of myself as a songwriter.
Oh, yes, of course. And as I've said before, too, and I mean this in all sincerity, because every time I do an interview, I'll put celebrity interview, and then I get asked this, well, I haven't heard of this person. Well, to me, and maybe I'm just a little few screws loose, but the reality in my world is any celebrity is defined by the fact that they live and breathe their passion, that they do things to inspire or motivate other individuals, and that they have a higher purpose. That's all it takes for me.
Okay.
So therefore, you fall in that classification, my friend. Just simple as that.
Thank you very much.
So I'll just keep calling you celebrity. Just get used to it. Don't worry. I'll keep reminding you of it as time goes on.
Okay.
I wanted to mention just some personal things that I have learned about you to tell the masses. Any guy that says the term changing my profile picture with each mood swing, you just totally described me. I was like, that's like one of the first things that impressed me when I read that line that I saw. That was absolutely wonderful. I love that. I do. I love that. I love the fact that I see on your page that I get the sense of things that Facebook just frustrates the hell out of you, because I've read different posts and I've seen where you struggle and you get frustrated, and I totally can relate to that on so many levels.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you that one. The fact that you have this athlete named George St. Pierre on your page, didn't know who he was. All I said was yum. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is awesome. He follows this dude who's an athlete who's amazingly good looking. Kudos to you for that. That's just an automatic bonus in my page. But I wanted to ask you, one of the things that you enjoy that I've never heard of and I thought was kind of a little quirky, we'll get back to that. I didn't want to forget to mention that you are an uncle and a very proud father, because I saw you post something about your daughter getting a scholarship. So kudos to your family on that one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. But I want to know what Montreal Psych Fest is. I'm like, what's a Psych Fest?
Oh, yeah, okay. Well,
yeah.
My friend Dave Lyons plays in a band called Devil's Den, and he is involved in what they call psychedelic music. I don't know, it's not the kind of music that I remember from the 60s exactly, but it's kind of a new take on it, and it's complex, and it's just I guess it's just kind of a style of music that they play here in Montreal and I guess elsewhere as well. So that's what the Psych Fest is all about.
My gosh, because I thought to myself, I literally thought it was like psycho, like psychic or psycho, and I'm just like, I totally have to ask this question. I know I'm a nerd. It's one of those things. I tend to ask awful more questions, so back off.
Well, I think it's psychedelic. Yeah.
Gotcha. I understand completely. I wanted to bring up, of course, I want to mention some of the different songs that you've done, and there's a reason for this. Open Road, Love, Leave Me Alone, The Four Horsemen, and, of course, Shoshonah. Interesting titles. And, again, the first three things that came to my mind were, of course, the message, the scenario. Second of all, you tend to speak about things that are of heart value, if you know what that means. I'm very big on heart value, and I gravitate to music that's easy to listen to, that has some sort of heart meaning to it, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
That's the second thing. Third of all, your tone, I don't know if you notice this, but you talking to me right now, your pitch is a bit different when you sing. I don't know if you're aware of that, or maybe it's because I need to take some banana juice or something, but is there any accuracy to that?
No, I really don't know, because I don't really think about it, and I'm not aware of how it might be different.
I gotcha. I was curious only because I didn't know if you had done specific study in pitch and tone and things like that, because sometimes people will do study that sort of thing and become more versed in that.
I'm not a trained singer, but I have a pretty good range, so I think my speaking voice tends to be a little bit on the baritone side, but
Right.
when I sing, I may sing high, I may sing low, but depends on what key I'm in and what the song requires.
Oh, definitely. And of course, the other thing that I thought about when I was thinking about the songs and the composing and the writing, are you, like, for instance, I'm a writer, so I have to have certain criteria, like I have to have certain music on, be in a certain room at certain times, use certain pens, certain things. Do you have any formalized sort of method when you compose or do your writing?
I don't have a formalized method, but usually I start with the germ of an idea, and then I try to develop it, and then I try to find a structure and try to make the thing have a beginning and a middle and an ending, and try to have certain elements besides meaning, like the words should flow and sound good coming off the tongue, but I wouldn't say, no, I don't really have a formula or anything like that.
I understand. I do. This one question I know I've never asked someone before because it might sound a little quirky, but obviously, of course, an author, let's say, for instance, like myself, who's done a book before, is just prone on so many different occasions to end up with writer's block. Does that ever happen to a songwriter where you're just like, I'm just stuck, I just can't go anywhere?
It happens all the time. It's a struggle.
Really?
Yeah. But at least now I always keep notes on everything I do. So I've got lifetimes full of half-finished songs. So sometimes when I get stuck, I just go back and look at some old ideas and see if I can look at them with a fresh approach. And that sometimes works for me.
Oh, definitely. Or sometimes getting away from things, because I know I've had to do that, or if there's too many interruptions. I've now learned that in my old age, it's even harder now to write than it used to. But then try throwing yourself in a room and 3 people are talking and you're trying to write, and I'm like, oh, my God, I can't focus. It's like I just want to, come over there and say, hey, you want to write for me? Because you're interrupting my mojo here. They don't seem to get that it's not. Writers don't just sit down in the morning and, okay, I'm going to crank out 50 pages today, pal. Wrong. That doesn't happen. At least not in my world, it doesn't. It's hard enough for me to write nowadays. It's just focus is tough. It's one of those things, obviously. So I totally get that.
I'm also writing my own memoir. I've written 200 pages, more than 200 pages.
Oh my God.
But it comes and goes. I go through a period where I'm writing every night, and then there'll be a gap, of a few weeks, and then I'll come back to it.
I gotcha. And so when can we anticipate to read this? Because now I'm anxious to hear about this. So the question is, when is this going to come out? When are we going to be able to see this, read this?
Well,
are you going to publish it, or is it just for you?
I don't know. I don't know that even. I've written it in a lot of detail, but I've only got the first quarter of my life written down so far.
You got a long way to
I'm probably going to go down back and sort that all out and try and make something of it.
I understand exactly what you're talking about. I do, definitely. So that makes sense. That's just exciting to hear that. I enjoy hearing that sort of thing. I wanted to touch base on the, the musician side of things, just to be clear for everybody. Exactly how many instruments do you play?
Well, I play acoustic electric guitar, harmonica with a neck rack, and I can play bass and I can find my way around a piano a little bit and this and that, but I'm mainly a guitar player.
I gotcha. Okay. And have you played I know there's various forms of guitar, so forgive my ignorance because I don't know the exact names, but I know I've seen, an electric guitar, and then I've seen a standard bass guitar and different ones. Do you have different types or versions of guitars that you play, or is it just more of one standardized type?
Well, no, I've got a collection of guitars, but my current acoustic guitar is a Martin. It's the first Martin I ever owned, which I enjoy a lot. But I've got 3 or 4 other guitars. My original guitar was an old Harmony Sovereign Jumbo, which I paid $100 for, I think, back in the early 70s, and and now I guess it's worth. I just saw yesterday. In fact, I was looking, and I guess they're selling for around $500 now. This guitar. So.
Oh wow! Holy mackerel! Things have changed a little bit now, haven't they? Not surprising, but no, I understand exactly what you mean. Now, again, on the musician side of things, typically in a show, do you utilize all those instruments, or you typically guitar is the mainstay?
I mostly play guitar and harmonica.
Okay, I gotcha.
I play my acoustic guitar off the harmonica rack, and Jordan plays bass and helps me with back vocals.
Oh, nice. Very, very nice. It sounds to me like you have a whole heck of a lot of chemistry going on here. That's really exciting.
We have a lot of fun, I have to say. I do enjoy our Mondays over there.
And what I find interesting, too, is you're not, like most of the musicians that come on the show, they're like, yeah, now I got to book this gig, and we're going to be doing this, we're going to be, we have no time for ourselves to breathe. And you have such a good introspect on this, kind of like, okay, well, we have this thing going and this thing going, and I'm okay with this, and it's all good. I love that attitude. That's awesome.
Well, thanks.
Very, 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 very unlike most of the musicians that I know. Definitely. I want to talk a little bit about, I know that you're having your third CD release that's coming up in the near future. So tell us about what we can expect, any approximate time range when you're looking to do that. Are you going to have a CD release party?
I really don't know about any parties or anything like that. It's all going to be completely self-produced and recorded in my basement on my laptop. But it's going to be a wide range of material. It's kind of a roots tour de force in a way, of ranging from very primitive kind of hillbilly music to rock and roll and some highly produced ballads and rock songs.
Oh, that sounds really exciting, actually. Is this a diversion to some extent in terms of some of your earlier material? Are there going to be newer type tracks? And I mean that, different melodies, different style of music, or are you kind of staying to the status quo?
No, it's definitely evolving as I go, and there's going to be a lot more drums. I got my sister singing backup. My sister Christine is singing backup vocals on the new CD, so I have a female harmony, which I never had before, and I don't know. I think I'm getting better at recording some of the guitar leads and this and that, so I hope that it'll be a step forward.
Oh, definitely. I'm certain. And, of course, obviously, it goes without saying that you're continuing on and on and on, and you're excelling over and over and over again, because now you're on to number 3. You've got yourself set into a solid gig on a regular basis. You're working with an individual who you appreciate and who you respect and who you have chemistry with. These are all very positive things. I wanted to mention to you that I have 4 times now before the start of this show attempted to upload the song that I wanted to play, which is, of course, your song, and it won't let me. For some strange reason, it keeps saying there's a corrupt file, it's a corrupt file, it's a corrupt file, so I couldn't download Shoshonah so people could listen to it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
wish I had known. I would have sent you another one.
And I did, and I tried, and I was like, oh, it's getting close to showtime, so I didn't want us to end up, having an issue and not getting on the air on time. So what I want to do is, after the fact, we'll get together afterwards, and then you can send me a copy of it, and I can zap it onto the audio clip here. I'll put the audio clip onto the interview, so this way then everybody will get a chance to listen to the music, because what happens is after the show is finished, it becomes archived. So then I'd say about within an hour and a half, the live version is on there that we did, and then what people will do is they can log back in. I'll give you the link for this. They can listen all year round. I mean, it never goes away. This entire format, this entire show will be here the whole time. I'll get with you as far as the MP3, put that song on there so that people get a taste of what you sound like, so this way they know you're an actual live musician who plays, because I absolutely love this song. In fact, I listened to it a couple different times, so thank you so much. I don't want to forget.
You could give people my SoundCloud website as well if they want to listen to some of my songs.
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. And I'm going to post all that information up on my show page as well as on my personal page here. I don't want to forget to mention, I know that we can find your music on YouTube, SoundCloud, CD Baby. Of course, you have a personal Facebook page. Are there any other places, social media-wise or on the Internet, that people can find your work?
I recommend people go to SoundCloud, www.soundcloud.com/MJSongs, and they'll be able to hear my first 2 CDs.
I was just going to say, in fact, and that I will notate, of course. Like I said, I'll do my write-up and I'll be able to do that. Oh, my God, I cannot believe it. Can you believe this whole hour is, like, basically up already? This is wild.
Fast.
And it, like, I know, right? It's like all of a sudden I look at it's 1 o'clock and I'm like, oh, my God, I have, like, 5 minutes left. So I want to take the last 5 minutes of my show because I do this standardized thing on every one of my shows. I always take the last 5 minutes, basically, if that, to basically tell you what I think of you as far as that goes.
Okay.
I want people to know exactly my impressions of you, and hopefully with any luck at all, if I've done my job right with the course of this interview, they'll not only be intrigued to listen to your music, but also intrigued to know who you are, because that is supposed to be my job. So I just want to give you some of my impressions of Michael Richards. First of all, he made it abundantly clear that I had to call him Michael, not Mike. So I'm used to saying Mike Richards, but now today I've been very good, and I've said Michael Richards. So this is what I think. I have always had the utmost of respect for individuals that I connect with on a personal level who actually notice me, who actually take time to get to know me to some regard. And although we haven't met each other face-to-face, I notice that you have done that. I notice that you've been very patient and very cooperative. That, first and foremost, speaks volumes about the character of a person. I like the fact that your goals are very passionate, but yet simplistic. You're very realistic about the world that you live in. You have done a magnitude of different things in your lifetime, meaning you haven't just solely been a musician. You've delved off into other areas of art. For me, first and foremost, that's one of the magical things about you, is the fact that you're able to be so versatile. There's no way I could do all three of these fields. So I commend you as far as that goes. I like the fact that you are very, I don't want to say outspoken, but you're opinionated in a good way, meaning if you have something to say, you say it, and you say it in a way that's not insulting or damaging to another person. I think we discussed earlier in the interview, I love the fact that you push and incorporate different messages, and they're positive messages, positivity and reinforcement, and talking about things that have love lessons or, like I said, heart value to them, which I find also inspiring. Again, dual citizen, 150% yes, as it relates to that. That's absolutely wonderful because you're embraced by both countries, which is wonderful. I love your style of music because it is folky, but it's also familiar to me. It's a sound that I've heard before, but not done in the same way and not played in the same way, which I think, to me, is another thing that's impressive about you. I feel very fortunate that you've given me this time. I'm hoping that when I get a chance to get to Canada, that I'll get to see you face-to-face. I'll come down to the cafe because I have to go to like 17 places in Canada. And I do hope that you make it a point whenever you do a CD release, or if you have something you want to talk about, or if you have something you want to play, that you'll consider my show to be able to do it.
Well, thank you very much, Cindy. I have to tell you, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I hope to see you at the cafe one of these days.
Oh, definitely. I look forward to that, certainly, and you'll have to keep me abreast, and I'll have to keep my eyes open to see what's been going on with you. But I just, like I said, I appreciate your patience so much, and I'm so sorry that my life has just not been able to coordinate with everybody else's schedule. And I do appreciate you giving me this time because, trust me, without you, I wouldn't have a show. So truly, I thank you so much for all your efforts and for the music you bring into the world.
You're very welcome.
All right, my dear. You have yourself a nice afternoon. Stay warm in this cold weather, and I hope to talk to you soon.
You too, Cindy.
All right, take care, dear.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. Was he not fabulous? See, I just keep upping the ante on these wonderful guests that I have. Again, that was Mr. Michael Richards from Canada. I want to go through once again. He has a personal Facebook page. He can have music found on YouTube, CD Baby, or on SoundCloud, as he mentioned, which is MJ Songs. I'll be posting all this information up on my page shortly thereafter the show. I just want to say a quick thank you so much again to Michael for all of his energy and his efforts. I also want to remind everybody, Thursday, and again, check the page for the time, Sister Grace from the House of Mercy will be talking about Sanctuary Village, which is for the homeless in Rochester, New York. You guys stay out of the snow. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.